Sorry, that should have been more of like a I can't talk, pleasure seekers. I'm the Rock. I'm gonna drop that conceit now. Hello, pleasure seekers. Welcome to Never Had the Pleasure. We are. This is a show where we talk about stuff one or both of us hasn't seen before, and we are trying a special experiment.
We have set out to establish what the general consensus of the internet is on the best and worst installments in the Fast and Furious franchise.
We'll put our far too complicated methodology up here. I looked at a Redditor's analysis from a most to least Fast and Furious. I asked the Fast and the Furious subreddit if they would chime in with their personal most and least favorite.
That's how we got the consensus, the best being Fast 5, the worst being Too Fast, Too Furious.
And you can stay tuned and learn whether these two strangers agree with the internet or not.
The Fast and Furious franchise is a cultural property that I think we both have fairly limited exposure to.
I think I've seen about half of the movies in the franchise, but neither of the ones that we are talking about tonight.
One of the things I know about this franchise, the continuity is very complicated.
Theoretically, at least, Tokyo Drift takes place after maybe all of them.
We did watch them.
We think in chronological order.
Yeah,
we watched them in
the order they were released.
Yeah. With that, should we dive in?
Let's turn on our nitrogen gas.
Funny you should say that, Michael. Are you a little thirsty, perhaps?
I smell grape in this room. Synthetic grape.
Your nose may deceive you. What you actually
smell
is liquid NOS drop shots.
The like NOS energy drink that I'm always seeing everywhere.
Oh, did they make that? This is just Red Bull. I added some maraschino cherry juice.
Cheers.
Cheers. La Familia.
Normally I drink whiskey.
Things are gonna get loose. How do you think we should start trying to unpack this pair?
We should probably get into two first. Too Fast, Too Furious, or as I like to call it, Too Fast, Too Florida. Because man, Florida is not very glamorous in this movie. There's pockets of it where this like car family has created a nice life for themselves. But like we're constantly off to Brian's shitty houseboat, passing by Golden Corrals.
Didn't spot that.
Compared to Fast 5, this movie felt quaint in a lot of ways. One of them being just like this lack of polish.
Which like I just loved. This franchise is rounding the corner to 20 years. It clearly belongs to a bygone era. The aesthetics of seriousness looked so much different. It's not like super jokey comedy or anything.
In the limited research that I did, it was based off of some article about like drag racing in New York City or something. Probably where a lot of the aesthetic that we see here in Too Fast, Too Furious comes from is the studio filmmaking's version of street culture, especially at the time, and like how poorly that ages.
Which it definitely ages inaccurately, but pleasantly.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I was in it to win it. This movie is worth it on the title card alone. The like light streaks. It's like we'll put it up there.
Universal logo.
I even forgot about that.
Transforming into rims.
Clearly they blew a huge chunk of their budget on the pre-credit sequence, the opening race, and then I think had to stretch their dollar a lot of scenes at this gated McMansion they rented. I did appreciate though that it had more variety of setting than the fifth one.
It exists in like the real world. So like Too Fast, Too Furious is ridiculous, of course, but it like makes more logical sense. Fast 5, they're just able to buy empty vaults and just transport them around with the snap of their finger.
Yeah.
Too Fast, Too Furious also is interesting in that it's one of a few of these where it's almost like a side story. Brian, aka Paul Walker.
Yeah.
I'm going to be using the actor's and the character's name indiscriminately.
Totally, yeah.
He's like the only one who carries over from like the first one.
Right.
It starts off with their big set piece of the movie. They don't want people to get their refunds for their tickets. But yeah, they have this Friday night drag race in front of Ludacris's
Yeah.
auto shop.
So charming. Such great hangout energy in a similar way to when they're just like at a house party in season 1 of the OC. Like I could have watched an entire movie at this like street race or Taj's oceanfront auto shop in Miami. Circling on back around.
Everybody pulls up with their extremely color coordinated cars. Their interiors are all lit.
And lit.
Pink or green or blue, whatever
Yeah.
their car theme is. They've all got the lights underneath their carriage.
Oh, you just know all the car words.
I'm such a car guy. They call up Paul Walker.
I'll be there in 4 minutes.
Pulls up in his flossy car.
Like dragon snort.
He's real down on his luck, guy.
Yeah.
You know I could use the money.
There's a ridiculous shot.
But only one.
Comically long. Like a dozen women in like tube tops and like hot pants.
Like from the back.
I was like, any of them were doing this.
Just one though, eh?
One particularly long shot.
From its time, for sure. And then there's like a race part of the race, but it's not as interesting as
beep,
the...
beep. Not only like one, do they not seem to be going all that fast, but two, we got these interior shots of the cars when they like turn on whatever like boost mechanism they have. They look like they're in a fucking rocket. It's literally like the warp speed sequences from Star Wars.
Yeah, it's great. That's the NOS Boosts.
I just laughed my ass off. So good.
Yeah, Too Fast, Too Furious had me like squealing with glee.
And then they cut to like the exterior shots and the cars are just going like, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting gesture at racing.
For as much money and like attention must have gone into this opening sequence, they didn't exactly nail the fast part.
It was assessed by that Redditor as the least Fast and Furious.
Hey.
It's interesting the way you talk about like filming the racing, trying to capture that sense of speed. Too Fast, Too Furious definitely still won me over just by sheer intensity and video gaminess. All of their dialogue, like, got one more trick for you. You're in my dust.
Just see like the avatar pop up in the corner on your PSP. In this film's defense, there was one shot where the camera like zooms in on one and then fluidly moves to all four. They only ever raced in fours.
Yeah, it definitely had a couple cool like trick shots up its sleeve. Both movies made smart use of CG. It's not going to like convince 15 years later, but like the shots are very effective.
I don't think there were any shots where I was like, oh, I'm like taken out of the world.
Every shot just like drew me in deeper and deeper.
All of these like going into the machinery shots after our Citizen Kane video. This is also a leap forward in cinematography.
Oh, for sure. On historic meme content alone, I eagerly await his inclusion in the Library of Congress's archive of memes. Skirt, race is over, Brian's won, but the DEA
the white guy, everybody's so happy about him showing up.
Brian O'Connor just happens to go way back with an exclusively ethnic minority cast of characters surrounding him.
One of the strengths of this franchise overall is the diversity. This movie was directed by John Singleton, but like the lens is still through this white dude. Brian is the guy who has the plan. Tyrese is the one who like flies off the handle
and like pockets the silverware.
Yeah.
That is a little bit counterbalanced by Tyrese having a more level head about Brian getting in too deep, and he's always saying, you need to check yourself, getting too personally involved. He's the one who scopes the drug lord villain in the VIP booth. Like, I want to be real careful that we're not like raking this movie over the coals and like letting the perfect be the enemy of the good, because having a almost exclusively non-white starring cast is a rarity and a big deal.
Yeah, for sure.
So like progress where you can get it, but not perfect. Anyways, let's put this car in reverse. We are back at the opening sequence. Here comes the cops, and they have a Doc Ock grappler arm that disables his car.
Straight out of like Inspector Gadget.
Mr. Sex and the City Samantha.
Who?
James Remar. He's the like DEA, the bad cop. Brian is in big trouble this time because he was racing a car for money.
He's the only one who got caught.
Yeah. Basically, he's just like off to Florida by way of Barstow. Quick pit stop to pick up Roman Pierce. Take your medication, Roman.
You'll be okay.
Our tough boys take a tussle.
As they lay there panting, I thought, why does anyone think these movies have homosexual subtext?
When I needed your ass, you were nowhere to be found.
But yeah, they recruit Brian's childhood
Friend
buddy,
and frenemy.
who's been down on his luck. They're gonna team up and
Clear their records. Racing cars for the good guys.
yeah, helping apprehend.
The generic crime lord from this movie.
Well, I would say Tyrese is a true comedy legend.
Um,
Shining the windows of the henchman. Does a bit of a Bieber singing Despacito. Insensitive Cuban murmuring.
Alien infidel. ¿Qué pasa, Jota?
The movie kind of loses steam.
Definitely not as maximalist. It becomes a more conventional buddy cop, I guess.
Yeah,
movie.
that kind of like drug thriller.
Figuring out the plan to capture
Carter Vallejo or something.
yeah.
Verone.
Carter Vindrome, alone with no one to trust. Only a woman to lust for.
Shut up.
Eva Mendes enters the picture.
Gentlemen, start your engines. Monica Fuentes.
Monica Fuentes, an undercover agent. Key to the mission in the key. She's going to be wrangling these boys, keeping them in shape.
I have a note that just says, Monica's bump it. She's got some height, some airtime.
Poor Eva Mendes. Just like sucking on a grape. Not given all that much to do here.
There are more highlights throughout, both in homey hangout vibes and in action sequences.
We get some time with Tej at the pool, Suki.
The first couple came out pre-Pimp My Ride, and it must have been like very clear inspiration.
We hooked you up with gold flake paint and 20,000 rhyme stripes all over your van.
They're hot.
Yeah, they hot.
It's kind of amazing that there was never any crossover. You give Exhibit a call and he's coming out. The like criminal world of machismo. First of all, like I'm real sorry to hear that the DEA are having this brand new problem with drugs coming into Miami.
You see, unfortunately, the cartels have been successful getting drugs into Miami, but they've had a hard time getting the cash out.
In 2003, I can see why they'd want to react real quick and get Brian on the case, because like you don't want that going on. The sort of like etiquette of being a hired gun criminal interloper is just fascinating to me. I personally would not think it was a good idea to set my new crime lord boss's henchman's car on fire, but Tyrese does and suffers no repercussions.
Kiss my ass, putos.
Ditto stealing his cigar cutter. In most Miami drug movies, that dude is losing a finger at least.
The drug lord is actually
Pretty chill.
yeah, he's very nice to them.
You boys enjoy the show. Help yourself to a little champagne.
Tyrese makes a comment about how they must be living pretty large. They've got their silk shirts and their chains. If money was no object, would you wear like a lot of like silk Panama shirts and like gold chains? Because it's a thing in like Curb too. Like Larry and all of his rich friends are always wearing these like silk Panama shirts.
Huh.
The height of luxury.
I
I'll
don't think
give
it's
it a
quite
try.
my taste.
I just don't think I have the complexion for gold. Perhaps like Grace Kelly in To Catch a Thief. I don't like cold things touching my skin. Did you notice the recurring catchphrase the two villains of these movies have?
No.
It was very memorable. Definitely an intentional callback. I'll see you soon.
Well, I was wondering
Diabolical.
if Carter pops up in any of the other films.
No, I think the second is one of the black sheeps of the franchise. Two notable faves of mine that have not yet popped up again. Suki and Bilkins.
Yeah,
Bring back Bilkins.
Bilkins.
Bilkins is great. Suki's great.
Yeah.
The actress who plays Suki is Steve Aoki's half-sister. Never say you don't learn anything around here.
I liked Suki's energy.
Her like human waifu pillow energy.
Sure, why not? But also,
Why?
why? Exactly.
Real like e-girl Twitch streamer kind of vibe.
She was in control. She wouldn't let Ludacris start the race. What I liked about this one is that it moved at a decent pace and had a lot of aesthetic
Throwback value.
Yeah.
You called both of them like generic in their own ways, and I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
To me, maybe just because of the time capsule value, the second one felt to me like something that I like couldn't really get anywhere else. Whereas the fifth one, obviously we'll talk about more, but it doesn't have as much character.
Yeah, it gets polished down to something more bland compared to some of the hyper colorized stuff with the second.
Neither of them is pulling any crazy plot twists on you.
One is more convoluted than the other, but they're both nothing that you can't see coming.
Which, whatever. It's not something I need in this kind of movie. It's fine.
Yeah, to me, the things that I'm interested in here are all of the like goofy moments in the second and the camp that Vin Diesel naturally brings to a movie like Fast Saga.
He truly is a cringe savant. It just flows out of him. It really is like a thing of beauty.
When did this turn into beautiful world?
What a treasure. So when they first get to Florida, the first mission that they go on is
it's like a rat race.
Exactly. It's a rat race. That's the like racing format.
Smash Mouth isn't the prize here.
The prize is just that you get to do another race for this guy, but this time maybe he'll pay you. Everyone else that turns out for the like audition rat race, they look like scene grips from diners, drive-ins, and dives.
Yeah, I mean, like one of them looked like the Smash Mouth singer, the guy who got
totally
totaled by the trucks. He had
I'm 40 and
his
a
mouth
production
smashed
assistant
between the trucks.
Yeah. Both movies, the henchman situation is pretty lacking. Excellent hero side, supporting cast and scene setting people.
Their crew back at Tejas.
And Too Fast, I just kept thinking like, because like at the end, Vindrome, like Shocker, has told his henchmen to kill Brian and Roman.
Oh.
I just kept thinking like, guys, no, don't. You switch sides and then you can be in a sequel.
That's the move.
Yeah, that's the move.
They got close, they bonded. But
they almost bridged that gap.
They didn't go the full Hobbs.
They didn't quite jump onto the boat. I do like that this is a franchise where the question is not how are they going to rescue Eva Mendes from the boat. The question is how are they going to get the car onto the boat.
I love that it's like they've ridden themselves into a position where they have to involve a car.
Yes.
They can't just
it's like more fundamental to the franchise than like any of the human characters. There is just something charming about being able to like see the conceit of like having to get the car there.
And boy, are there a lot of cars in this movie.
Oh, fellas.
There's a lot of cars.
Check out that Mitzi Bitsy over there.
Oh
We kind of like breezed by a lot of the plot in the back half. It has a very like episodic structure. It feels like it was scripted to make into a video game because it's just like mission, regroup, mission, regroup. The screenplay is so minimal. I think it's the screenplay with the fewest words in it that I've seen since like The Bling Ring. Paul Walker throughout the course of this movie, I would bet he says like fewer than 500 words. I don't know what your take was on the acting talent of these different people, but Paul Walker is like not a good actor in this second one. The line readings are not super convincing a lot of the time, like especially when he's in like tough guy mode.
I need you to come to Miami and drive with me. If you do, they'll take off that anklet and they'll clear your entire record.
He never quite pulls it off. Somehow, despite not being very like good, the performance works. It feels only natural when the like world that he's in bends around him to embrace him as the hero. I guess this is totally typical like any action movie, but like yeah, like of course we can get your cars fitted for like ejecto seats because like overnight little things like that, or like they're in this race to do like a car swap. They better think of a plan because that guy's car goes vroom really loud, and their plan is just like, okay, so like NOS on the way back. That's the whole plan. Like, of course, it just like works.
He does like a chicken thing, right? He is a crazy driver. The like stare and drive thing, and
He
is
belongs
willing
behind the
to go
wheel.
there. He's got the balls.
He's got the balls. And
All right, Rome, I got something for your ass.
speaking of homosexual subtext, circling back to Paul Walker's performance and the way that the movie just lays at his feet, the plot just like goes his way because he's the hero and that's the way it is. What it really has, like I said like video game before, more even than a video game, like what it really reminded me of is like vintage narrative porn. He kind of has the acting style of like an 80s porn star. So many of his line readings were taking me back to like Boogie Nights.
Good. It's not good. It's probably the best place to eat in all Los Angeles.
Wait, hold on. Hey, bro, what's going on?
And that's something that like he works out. The performance style is much more naturalistic in the fifth one.
Yeah.
Vin aside.
He seems to be putting on a lot less.
Yeah. And I think that on its face is definitely probably for the best. I thought there was something kind of fascinating about the like.
I'll say this. They definitely drop off the like, yeah, brah, I gotcha dialogue.
Yeah, so many different ways to say brah.
I think in both, they have some of like the worst line readings that I have ever seen in film. Like Jordana Brewster in
Yeah.
Fast 5.
I thought Jordana Brewster was really giving it. Earning that paycheck, just fawning over her boys and...
What is going on out here? She's got another great moment. It's like a real tight up shot of her that they cut to where she's like, guys, we have a problem.
She does have a kind of like frayed energy, like this lifestyle is getting to her. It makes sense. It tracks with the character's position in the world. She's a hunted woman carrying life inside her, but death is all around her.
Just gotta keep those boys on task.
Somebody's got to.
They're reckless,
Reckless abandon.
but also lawful good. All right.
Trucking right along.
There's so many scenes with Tyrese and Paul Walker just like smiling and looking at each other, talking about how there's so many women to get with.
Man, it's so hot and humid out here, I can't even wear no drawers.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Look at all this potential out here.
Who wrote this? I guess that kind of covers Too Fast, Too Furious. Snuck
Sounded that
away
boat.
with their money. They're gonna open up a garage or something.
They're all just always going to open garages.
As we've been bringing up some parallels, I would be remiss if I don't mention how much I love the end credit songs. How do we roll? This is how we roll. Watch me while I roll.
How do we drive? This is how we drive.
Watch me do my thing while I do
Yeah.
my thing.
By the time we get to the fifth, we are firmly in the Hans Zimmer sub-bass era of action movie scoring. Man, I miss the like crunk wave rap on the soundtrack, constant diegetic David Budden tracks. Where's Luda? I feel like Luda's spirit is lacking. Right, we cannot put it off any longer. We must address Fast 5. So Fast 5 opens with like light streak CG and like a transforming Universal logo.
Fast 5 does?
Too Fast.
There you go.
Fast 5 opens with a series of brief, grim vignettes separated by multiple fades to black. Things are in very dire straits. Always.
Heard happily from Parks and Rec, both Comcast properties. Yeah, so, hey, we get to see Vin for the first time here. And he's thrilled to see everyone.
I think we're going to have to be a little more clear cut on this one because we've got Vinny. We're going to have to go
Vince,
Dom
right?
and Vince.
I don't have too much to say about Vince. I am so confused about who he is.
I'm sorry, I'm not totally sure who you are.
Wow. Is he someone's brother?
He's Dom's like childhood neighbor.
Gotcha.
They go way back. And then Brian came
Because,
in.
so Jordana Brewster.
Vince didn't trust him from the jump.
Jordana Brewster is Vin Diesel's sister.
Yeah, of course.
Brian and Jordana Brewster.
Mia Toretto.
Uh,
The A-Team like crashes the prison bus. That the voiceover very clumsily after the fact makes sure you know no one was killed in.
I don't know how.
Seriously. This movie was like a pretty hard PG-13. There's some rough hits and some large and in charge squibs.
This one felt very influenced by like the Bourne series to me. The intensity of the fighting and casual attitude towards death and a lot of the shot compositions too. part of that time in filmmaking with all the shaky
I guess it would have
cam.
been
Yeah.
right around that.
Yeah.
I know movies have gotten more expensive on like an escalating curve over time, but I think like even for when this movie came out, it was not that expensive at $120 million. It did like throughout feel like these were real races, like real events happening with a couple exceptions.
They're ridiculous scenarios, but
they feel like the
everything
physics check
yeah,
out.
yeah.
It's to the movie's credit that pretty frequently you can't really tell what they did practically versus what gets done post.
I'm sure plenty of the stuff with the vault, just like tearing up the pavement.
You did not have a lot of praise for Florida as a setting in the last movie. What did you think of Rio as the canvas?
I was really hoping that we'd be like traveling to more locations. I got kind of tired with the aesthetic and
the color palette. I could have used a break, like a street festival, a nightclub.
This movie visually is much more subdued, obviously.
A lot of like warehouses with lighting coming in through like the haze.
Grungy housing streets. I found it refreshing the moments when we do get the hangout at the drag race. The one part where they have like some color, or when
even
they're
that
at the
though I
beach.
found so monotone. When you're doing a direct comparison to the street race in Too Fast, Too Furious, one of the most extra sequences that I've ever seen in a movie. It is giving you so much.
It can't compare. Our main crew head to Rio de Janeiro. You can tell from the copious shots of the Christ the Redeemer statue.
We get one from behind at night that's very like, I bring you love. You know, it's a great looking statue. I don't begrudge them a glamour shot.
They were doing so much of it that I thought that like redemption was going to be more of a theme here. But,
reasonable.
I mean, not really.
Redemption or faith, or maybe there'd be like a set piece there. Are they going to get the car up the statue? I guess that's more of like a 7, 8, 9 era.
Yeah, so they are on the lam.
Hunted, persecuted, other adjectives. A life of strife.
They need some money. So they're doing a job, stealing these cars, right?
Yeah.
From this train. We get this big set piece. Vin shows up unexpectedly.
They bicycle kick leap into the azure waters of Rio. Enjoy the compound fractures, guys.
Like... Vin says, like, man, that was a tough call to make. Except not in that voice. It was more like, man, that was a tough... That was awful.
Man, that was a tough call.
But they're completely unscathed. Herman Reyes, the drug kingpin of this film.
Like, seriously, the villains are so lacking. This one just like gathers some like faceless white collar types into this like nondescript conference room to just give them a PowerPoint monologue about how he rules the favelas. I don't know if you even see their faces or if they say a single word. Such a throwaway perfunctory scene. It was weird.
We're all on this train with the car that Reyes needs, and they end up like killing some U.S. Marshals or something.
People from
Rio
one of the many like real and fictional paramilitary security agencies constantly dueling in these movies.
Yeah. A couple of them get killed here. It appears as if our Fast Five are responsible. They are wanted even more than they were before, but good news, they got away with this car that Reyes so desperately needed, and something inside of it holds information that he needs. And who would have guessed? It's the computer system.
That most insidious of all possible MacGuffins, a delivery route. Anyways, they crack the code of powering on the computer in the vehicle.
Something that the DSS has trouble with later.
Can't outsmart the Fast Five. It would have been neat if there were like 5 people in the crew.
Well, yeah. There were some perfunctory people in the crew. They probably could have gotten there.
The superfluous 7. All I'm gonna say is that I know all of the characters' names, and so there's no need to quiz me about that.
They know that computers can hold information.
Well, they do bring in their elite hacker Ludicrous. Characterization completely consistent with his introduction in the second.
He goes from like owning this shop and running these races and all these side hustles.
Sookie on his arm or his lap.
I want an origin film for him.
I don't know.
I just want to know how they can explain this.
Well, and Tyrese, he's kind of like mid-transformation here.
Pulls up wearing like jeans and a motorcycle jacket.
I remember in the 7th, he's basically like the cowardly lion of the crew.
The first one, he's like action in West Side Story. He's always the one instigating shit.
Popping off his blouse to tussle with the boys. And this one... no tussling, no popping.
Although he does sport a modern version of his iconic sleeveless blouse. I like the callback. I feel like that's something that this franchise does really well with.
They get that kind of like fan service, I think, pretty like innately.
Yes. So they know the locations of a lot of money in Rio. They concoct a plan in order to steal $100 million.
That's so many millions of dollars, but somehow not enough to justify the risk of going after this crime lord who rules all of Rio.
I have a feeling they'll make it through. Okay, except for Vince.
I am just shocked they brought him back only to kill him off.
Hey, I guess they got more because of that, though.
No, his wife got his cut.
Family first.
La Familia. Salud. The movie goes full heist mode, basically.
The scene where they're like, oh, we need the driver, we need the computer person, we need the pickpocket guy, you know, directly from Ocean's 11. They start assembling their Ocean's 11, bring in Gal Gadot, who they know from some means.
I guess maybe they met her at like the Krav Maga boot camp that they must have all taken to become such Jason Bourne level hand-to-hand combatants between movies.
Yeah, they bring in Han, who they also know, I guess, from when...
Well, Vin met him when he was in that cameo.
They're connected, guys.
Family is all about connection.
We are all connected.
So
you don't have to explain how you know family.
They've got their mission to get some funds for, I guess, living on the lam for the rest of their lives. Hopping from non-extradition country to non-extradition country.
Sounds great. How they're gonna get their cars between all of them?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Tyrese comes with a chopper and picks them up. China to Australia.
An important factor that we've kind of left out of the mix so far. I guess Reyes is the Andy Garcia of the movie, technically. Who is The Rock then? I guess like he doesn't have a parallel in Ocean's 11.
No.
He's doing like so much in a way that like should be indistinguishable from Vin, but is somehow like completely different. I find The Rock, like particularly in these movies, a lot to take.
As opposed to Vin?
Vin, like I said, like he's got that cringe factor X. He is a true cringe god. Oh, Vin.
Vin had a real Stockholm Syndrome effect on me, where he is so gruff and so serious throughout all of the films, but when he smiles, the elation I felt.
Vin shines through.
You'll be shocked to hear Vin Diesel is not his real name.
It's a real Archie Leach.
Who would have guessed?
What is his real name?
Vin was born Mark Sinclair.
Vin Diesel is so like post-human. Mark Sinclair is very human. But like The Rock, I don't know, like The Rock is like, his dialogue is just like, have you seen Predator?
No.
It's known for its incredibly over the top like macho man dialogue. It works in Predator because it's a group of people and this is their way of relating to each other, but in this movie it's just The Rock. He like paradrops into this world.
Yeah, there isn't the like camp cringe factor as much with The Rock, although it gets present when they're together and they're like just dueling it out for who is more alpha.
Kind of like the dawn of what I would call like the contractual phase of these movies. where it's this open secret that agents are bickering over like who lands how many punches and tallying who gets thrown through what material of
Making
wall.
sure everything's even.
And that was so tiresome in Hobbs and Shaw. Like by the time it gets to that point, I left the theater because I felt like I was watching a filmed representation of two men's contract negotiations. But this movie, it's like at such an early stage that I don't think I really would have noticed if it hadn't become such a like an open secret after the fact with these movies. I thought that their like heavy hitter brawl, I felt like it like worked in this movie for me.
It's an interesting fight in that usually in a Jason Bourne movie, like he just deals with henchmen so easily, it's so like unbalanced. Whereas here, these are both just like comically large men.
Yeah, but like one could wear the other as an exoskeleton. It's like the height of fantasy
But
that like
Dom is our hero, Sean.
yes, of course. Must not forget Dom's rightful place, head of the table, head of the family. Dom has such a stranglehold over the performed culture of this like family.
Hey everybody, an old man's talking.
Grandpa's the name.
Speaking of The Rock here, one other parallel between these two is all of the product placement.
Under Armour. Yeah,
constantly.
that's yeah.
And then in Too Fast, Too Furious, the Pepsi billboard.
Too Fast clearly is just like a movie that can do no wrong in my eyes. The product placement doesn't even bother me. One large and in charge item that I didn't notice logo on is the Rock's Rockmobile.
It's like
blast. Yeah, it's like sand colored tank. It's so like the perfect vehicle to represent the Rock. Just like barely fits down these streets in Rio.
The DSS is on their ass. Lots of little side missions to concoct the scenario where the big bad has to store all of his money in the police station because police are corrupt here.
Boy, are they ever. You think Rio paid to be product placed like Mexico did
not
with
a great product placement.
Yeah, it has this setting, a city that's like pretty famously multi-ethnic, where there's a lot of like stratification between classes. Rio must be so tired of being presented as just like machine guns in alleyways, drug lords who rule the favelas with an iron fist.
Workshops full of people packaging up drug money. There's like one scene at the beach where things seem nice. Everything else is just
poverty and
guns.
corruption. And yeah.
Tyrese gets a ridiculous scene with the police. They need intel from
he's
the
a fast talker.
Is he?
He's a talker.
I really appreciate Tyrese and a little bit of Ludacris here, keeping the vibe light.
I know the reputation for the fourth in our like straw poll on Reddit, it got by far the most worst votes. I think because it is the most kind of like dour and over serious, but like it is hard to imagine how much further it could go in that direction than this one. I may never find out. In hindsight, they probably felt like it was an overcorrection after the like candy paint street race era, Drift, the era with the fun titles.
So they've got these missions, and their goal is to get all the money in the police station. Along the lines, we get the talk about like fathers and sons. We find out Jordana Brewster's pregnant. So we get all of that.
Like all pregnant women, she's inexorably drawn to the farmer's market. She just can't help it, and it almost gets her caught until the man swoops in to save her.
He just needs to get veggies. Girl, just put him down. What happens to this baby? Does Jordana Brewster just have a baby from there on out?
That's how they write him out in the seventh.
Does she get written out?
Sort of by proxy. I think you see her
like,
for Jordana Brewster. Yeah, it does. Maybe she'll pop up. They like to have people pop up.
I guess Gal Gadot is an attempt at somebody who is like more integral to the team than just kind of being like behind the computer desk.
Nagging them about traffic directions.
Yeah.
What did you think of their love connection?
They seemed like the two people in the room who made any sense and found them both very refreshing.
For sure. I could have done with like a little bit more of them. The chemistry between the actors worked. I know enough about the franchise to have expected the other kind of like romantic relationships and entanglements. It was nice to have one that was a bit of a surprise.
These movies do have like a soap opera element. Everybody's gonna pair off with somebody. Dom's budding love with the female DSS agent.
I was kind of surprised how they sidestepped the very obvious love triangle with her and The Rock and Vin. Because at the end, she's just like a happy camper on the beach with Vin and Brian and Mia. It seems like they're kind of like setting her up for the Rock to pair up with. That just like completely slips out the sandwich.
There's so many shots of her like longingly looking at his chain. Upon first watch, I read that all as just, here's the guy who saved me.
Oh, it's a love connection.
Yeah.
Love through loss.
She loves Vin. Who can resist his charms?
Oh, his charms.
Well, by this point, Hobbs, not Shaw.
Luke Hobbs.
Luke Hobbs. The Rock is like working with them because
he's got to get revenge for his team.
I guess. I don't know.
My man got cremated like turds on the sidewalk. Whatever the fuck he'd say.
Think that they get to the point where they are just literally dragging a bank vault through the streets of Rio. Ridiculous, of course, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it like totally worked as a climactic car-based action sequence.
I just wish there was something more akin to this, or the like train scene
somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, pick up the pace a bit.
The vault chase is really cool, but like Chinstrap Shorty henchman is like not valid as the final foe. Reyes just like goes down. Hobbs just like double taps him, and that's that, right? I'd say a lot of these movies have some villain problems. The middle basically just has there's fist fight between like The Rock and Vin.
There's a lot of roof hopping
and hanging out in the warehouse.
I don't need all of this time.
I wonder how much of that is for like franchise fans.
This is the 5th installment with these characters.
And kind of I think like, exactly.
Anyways, they did it. Yay! Everybody gets their money.
Clink, cheers, La Familia, salute. I love God. Gotta kiss my cloud daddy. Which is our way of saying that that's the end of the movie. They're just like chilling on the beach.
Cue the everybody gets a car clip. Tej gets his dream of owning a garage.
That's pretty egregious.
I want to look up if this is a prequel. We finish off finding out about Letty. Hey, Eva Mendes is back. The iconic Monica Fuentes.
One of Bilkin's angels. Fun callback.
So, those are the best and the worst of the franchise. That kind of leaves us with the question of what is your best and what is your worst?
Oh, the internet is wrong. Too Fast, Too Furious is so much more fun. Its weaknesses are like much more upfront and out in the open. I know I'm in the minority. Like obviously this was like the least liked. Although I will say that like some of the fans came through for it on Reddit, but Too Fast, Too Furious is so much more in line with what I want from a fun ride of an action movie. Obviously, a lot of people prefer the more serious tone of the later movies, the more natural settings and acting style in the Grief trilogy. To me, that just seems so not playing to the strength of this material, where cars get parachuted onto the fucking Eiffel Tower or whatever, right? I would just like happily stay in candy paint zone forever. I'd like some insight into like what exactly people like about that more sort of like grounded take on things. If you are one of those people, I guess like let me know in the comments. I want to be open to it.
This is like from an outsider's perspective. The 5th is treated as probably the best, largely because it kind of like plays things the most straight, whereas later on they get sillier.
I will say, for somebody who's seen the 7th and 8th, they continue to play the scenarios very straight. The stakes and the trappings get so over the top that like...
Yeah, my perception from hearing about this franchise for years is that Vin's ego starts running amok and he becomes even cringier. Tyrese and Ludacris, their characters change and bring the comedy relief even more. This one seems the most to me like a serious attempt at good, solid action. Before like Helen Mirren comes in as somebody's grandma.
Not wanted.
Gave Red a try already.
Yeah, fair point. Everyone had their chance.
Comparing these two, like they're apples and oranges to me. Fast 5 is of a much larger scale with technically much more impressive set pieces. But to me, Too Fast, Too Furious has a lot more room for charm. So yeah, I'm in agreement here. Like, Too Fast, Too Furious is where the fun's at for me.
I don't want to like totally dismiss Fast Five. It's got its merits. This movie finds a formula that works and just sticks with it and iterates and to a degree improves.
One of the things that it really expands on is character development and like getting to know like these dynamics. I know that's a huge part of the appeal of the franchise was the whole like family element. It's kind of like an Avengers situation. You've got characters from all of these 4 films coming together here.
For sure, and it's interesting that it's a franchise where it's kind of an ongoing Avengers type thing. The Avengers movies have a bunch of movies in between. This is always just everyone is going to be a grab bag where they're pulling in whoever they feel like from wherever else in this universe, right? It kind of always feels like a different experiment, different scenario. There's something kind of cool about that.
This has opened my thinking to like maybe wanting to go to an opening weekend of one of these because these are like massive movies that massive amounts of people love.
Those movies like do gain something from being seen like with those people in the theater. So yeah, fair point. If you want to do that, there's no time like the very near future.
You have had more experience with this franchise. Did watching these movies change how you think you'll engage with it going forward?
I think it reinforced that. I think like I'll definitely go back to these first 3. They'd be great on in the background or like on when you're like hungover or having a lazy couch day. Great hangout material. The third also just has that like puzzle of the leading man.
Tokyo Drift being such an anomaly in this franchise is something that I think could be fun to take a look at.
Let us know. Click and clack those fingers like Mia.
And subscribe.
I'll race you for it. Loser has to subscribe to the winner's channel.
High stakes.
Yeah.
All right. Before we finish off, I would be remiss if I don't bring up a couple of fun facts.
Okay, shoot.
Number 1, I feel like this franchise would have gone in a completely different direction if this actor had been cast as Dom. Timothy Oliphant.
What?
Like,
how is that any kind of contrast with Paul Walker? Especially at the time. I feel like, the first movie is just Paul Walker, Timothy Oliphant, and whoever the fuck plays the, like, knockoff Steven Dorff, Vinny guy.
Yeah, I have to assume that that was, like, an early idea.
It's
with,
so
like,
much whiter.
With, like, the first draft of the script or something. That would just change this franchise in so many ways.
It just seems like it would be so much more overtly Point Break with street racing.
Yeah, which makes sense that they were maybe initially trying to do.
Casting Vin Diesel was obviously the right call in hindsight.
I read like Paul Walker and Michelle Rodriguez, some of the other people in the cast, hold for them to cast Vin.
Wow.
Because like by that point he had done like Saving Private Ryan.
There are a lot of Vin Diesel classics that I'd like to get to.
Okay, so the other one.
First fact, just like mind blown. Excellent.
Do you know what franchise they wanted Fast and the Furious to cross over with and that they were like seriously considering very recently?
I'm gonna guess Mission Impossible.
Jurassic World.
That is a great idea because Jurassic World just like that franchise has nothing to lose at this point.
Okay,
it's been coasting on fumes since Jurassic Park 3.
This might have been like a way for them to like resurrect Jurassic Park before Jurassic World came along.
Cars versus dinosaurs, like, it feels like a natural fit. There's already that great T-Rex chasing the Jeep sequence in Jurassic Park. I say go for it, guys. It's not too late.
To me, Jurassic World is a pretty like garbage franchise, which I guess isn't actually all that controversial to say, but like that is just so insulting to like Jurassic Park itself. It's like, taken so much abuse that like whatever. Send in Vin and the crew.
They're like such opposites from a franchise endurance point of view, where Jurassic Park, like a lot of monster movies, it's just this one story and then you can only do so many variations on it. Whereas Fast and the Furious, you could make these movies until the end of time. Somebody else can get amnesia.
It just seems like an insult to both fandoms that like I also want to see.
Go for it. That is like the height of like screenplay written by a 5-year-old stamp of approval.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right.
That's great.
I guess that's our episode, folks.
Everybody raise your glass. No empty glasses at my table. La familiar. And goodbye.
Girls are wearing sequin tank tops, walking around cars with their fingers actively stroking the lights.
Girls be flirting. Girls be flirting.
Rest in peace.
Ooh.